Hello everybody, welcome to Friday's edition of the Chris Pritchard Cycling News Show. Let's get straight into it. So today I'd planned to get Laura back on the show from the Peloton brief, and we were just going to discuss what's been happening over the past couple of days at the Tour de France. We were also going to get our other half on Nathan Haas. We're going to talk to him about who he thinks is the most underrated GC contender in this year's Tour de France. However, after what happened today and the fact that during that chat with Laura, we both kind of said, this Tour de France is bloody boring. All hell broke loose today. So today's show is dedicated solely to stage 7 of the Tour de France, and there's so many narratives to go through. Let's go all the way back to the start of this stage. So the main concern for the peloton today wasn't a mountaintop finish, it wasn't sketchy descents, it wasn't even rain. It was the crosswinds. Now, we've been promised some big action from crosswinds earlier in the Tour de France, but that never really materialised. The winds never picked up strong enough to start ripping that peloton apart the way we wanted it to. But today, then again, let me ask you this question. Was it the wind that assisted Bora-Hansgrohe in doing what they did right at the start of the stage? Because the winds back at the start weren't as strong as they were towards the end. I think it was more down to the fact that, well, Bora-Hansgrohe just simply turned the stage up on its head. So, back at the start, after about 10 kilometres into the race, Bora-Hansgrohe sat on the front and just ramped up the pressure and just applied the pressure, applied it until eventually they got the desired effect, which was to get that green jersey wearer, Sam Bennett, out the back, and he went out the back all right. And you can see from this tweet here, the race was 168 kilometres in length. At 145 kilometres, there was 27 seconds between Peter Sagan and Sam Bennett. A minute and 46 seconds were some even bigger sprinters. You had Elia Viviani in there, Christoph was in there, Ewan was in there, Nizzolo and Bo. And the plan was simple for Bora-Hansgrohe. Rip the race apart, hope all those sprinters, especially that green jersey wearer Bennett, was behind them, mop up all the points, both for that intermediate sprint and the final sprint. And it worked a treat. And as the riders headed to that intermediate sprint, they had 1 minute and 44 seconds both on the polka dot jersey and that green jersey. Now, it wasn't the perfect sprint that Bora-Hansgrohe were hoping for. Matteo Trentin actually took maximum points at the intermediate sprint, but luckily Peter Sagan finished in second place. And then when you add that to his final overall position on the stage, he now takes the green jersey back from Sam Bennett. Unorthodox tactics to say the least, but it worked and he's back in that jersey. Just going to prove to all those people out there that are saying Peter Sagan is past it. I think the term that everyone's using is dying a slow death. He's not. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think he'd be willing to not win a stage this whole Tour de France if he could take home that green jersey on the Champs-Élysées. In fact, let me know down below. What do you think to that? Do you think Sagan would rather take a stage win right now? Or do you think he would rather take that green jersey? Let me know down below. And with the race ticking under 100 kilometres, it was Thomas de Gent's time to remind everybody how much of a nutter he is. And he went off on a solo break against the rest of the reduced peloton. And as you'd expect, this breakaway was never going to get away. 36 seconds at the top of the second summit of the day, taking maximum points with 70 kilometres to go, but he was soon brought back into the fold of the peloton. And Bora-Hansgrohe here at 61 kilometres were just making sure that that gap was not going to get reduced, that Sam Bennett was not going to get back in this peloton and contest the sprint at the end of the race. And to be fair to Thomas de Gent, strong as an ox as he is, he managed to stay all the way out till 35 kilometres before the finish, before the actual peloton caught him, and this is where the action started. You can see from this screenshot here, 3 Team Ineos riders right at the front, and that's because they knew what was about to happen. And you can see from this tweet here from the Tour de France, echelons forming everywhere. And it was down to the smart work of Ineos Grenadiers to make sure that they were at the front, pushing that pace on, breaking that front peloton to pieces. And at first it looked like the main GC contenders had all made it across into that front group. A couple of kilometres later, we realised that 2 of the big contenders for GC, well, I say contender, Michael Landa, come on, a top 5 contender. But Tadej Pogačar, who started the day in 3rd place, was in the group behind, losing time hand over fist to that front group. You can see here at 24.5 kilometers, it was already up to 49 seconds between him and that front group. And with 18 kilometers to go, the lead had extended to 53 seconds and it was going to go out beyond that as well. Now, as we came into the final kilometer, it was a relatively select group of still very highly skilled sprinters. You had Edvald Boasson-Hagen in there, Peter Sagan was in there, Wout van Aert was in there, Brian Kocher was in there, Julian Alaphilippe, he was in there. You never know what he's going to blooming do at any point. Jasper Stuyven, he was in there as well, but come on, I just don't know what to say. Wout van Aert taking the victory again. I know it feels like I'm brown-nosing him, because all I ever do is speak highly of him. But when he's doing things like this, again, we go back to what he's been doing at this tour. Towing his GC contenders up hills like an absolute beast, right? The following day, he's sprinting like an absolute beast. Today, the level of concentration that those Jumbo-Visma riders would have had to put out today. On top of that, this race started from kilometre zero. This has been full on all day. And he's had to maintain that concentration to make sure that his GC riders are in the right place. Coming into a kilometre, I dare say he didn't even think about sprinting, let alone taking the victory. But puts himself in the right place at the right time. Obviously the team must have said, go and have a go, son. He had a go. He only went and bloody won it, didn't he? Unbelievable. Now, I know I shouldn't probably say this because I don't want to jinx it, but I'm going to say it anyway. The potential of Jumbo-Visma taking both the yellow jersey and the green jersey in Paris, there's a good bloody possibility that that actually might happen. So before we move on to the GC and the green jersey, let's take a look at the results of that stage 7. As I said before, Wout van Aert taking the victory. Edvald Boasson-Hagen, on any other day when Wout van Aert isn't in the race, he's taking the victory all day long. Brian Kocher was in 3rd. Christophe Laporte, he was in 4th. Jasper Stuyven sprinted out to 5th. Venturini in 6th. Hofstetter, who had a big off near the start of the stage today, he managed to get himself back into that front group and have a really solid result in 7th. The first of the GC contenders there in 8th, Egan Bernal. And Adam Yates had a solid day on the bike in 9th place, maintaining that overall lead in the GC. Down in 12th place after sprinting and then giving up because someone got close to him. It did appear that Stuyven and Alaphilippe did have a bit of a clash coming into the finish, and Alaphilippe was not happy, so he just stopped his sprint. Sagan, again, wrong place, wrong time. He got caught behind the NTT rider who was leading out Boasson-Hagen. I don't know if he clipped him or what happened, but it appeared that Peter Sagan's chain potentially fell off there, and then he didn't sprint at all. But look what the Crosswinds have done to the GC. Adam Yates still holds on to that yellow jersey and potentially will do all the way into the rest day now. Primoz Roglic is in 2nd. Guillaume Martin moves himself up into a podium position. We're going to be talking about him on tomorrow's show. Egan Bernal up into 4th. Dumoulin into 5th. The biggest loser, of course, out of all this is Tadej Pogačar. Loses 13 positions and is now at 1 minute 28 seconds behind the yellow jersey. And then in that hunt for that green jersey, you've got Peter Sagan taking the lead from Sam Bennett up to 138 points. Sam Bennett is now on 129. But look, Wout van Aert, after that victory, moves himself up 9 positions and he's on 106 points. So it's still all to play for there. I mean, honestly, what an absolute belting stage. All the way from the start where Bora-Hansgrohe just ripped up the rule book and decided to start racing from kilometre zero, to those crosswinds, to those riders getting left out of that front group, to the sprint at the intermediate to put Peter Sagan back in green, to that sprint at the final where Wout van Aert took victory. I know we've had a couple of boring few days, and I did expect this one to be another one of those boring days, but that's what we love about the Tour de France, isn't it? So I guess let's end here. What did you guys think to stage 7? One of the best stages of the Tour de France this year, or the best stage of the Tour de France this year? And how can we implement some artificial crosswinds for upcoming stages just to make it a bit more entertaining? As ever, leave your comments down below. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this video. We've got another video coming out over the weekend. As I say, I sat down with Laura from the Peloton Brief and her other half, Nathan Haas, and we chatted Guillaume Martin, gay porn, and some other stuff I can't quite remember now, but you'll be able to see that on tomorrow's show. Thanks for watching, take care, have a good weekend, I'll see you Monday.